and into Baker County here, some of the cities that are going to be in the potential for another radar-derived tornado. Taylor, Kinney, and Pine Top moving away from Columbia County and into and north of US 90 and I-10. Folks that are familiar both with northern Columbia County and into Baker County know that these areas are populated, albeit a bit more sparse, especially as you get up toward the state line here. Nonetheless, somebody's grandma lives there, and that's why we are going to monitor a pretty interesting cell. We're seeing a lot of lightning here that is on the leading edge of where we're seeing all of the red. Being that it's marking it all the way back here just to the south of Greenfield, I would say the potential, the damage part of the storm system is trying to develop where we're seeing the more consistent of our lightning strikes. To be severe thunderstorm, which this already was, we've got the potential for the hail. We've also got the potential here for wind in excess of 58 miles an hour. Strong winds preceding some of these storms are already being felt across the area. And now with the potential for some rotation, it just ups the ante here for what could be the severity of our storm. So let me go back inside of our tornado warning. Both of these, Columbia and Baker County, will expire at noon. And the potential is as this continues to move away from Columbia County, we may see that part drop off. So Columbia would get an expiration, and then it would continue through Baker as we get through the lunch hour here today. So that's going to set up about 20 minutes. We continue to monitor any of the reports that would be coming out from our last storm that we were watching as it went through and around the Nahunta area. You see that our rotation icon continues here, and the same idea really popping over Darien, 178 lightning strikes, and Brunswick, you're just on the edge here getting into some of the rain and the wind. With the crux of the storm, it looks like it's going to sweep just to the north since we were tracking this one a little while ago as it moves away from Deerwood up through the Arco area with the lightest amounts here just outside of the box. So lighter shower and storm activity here for St. Simons and Brunswick with the heaviest as it continues up around the Pennock area and Anguilla. All right, let's go ahead and head back over to our current tornado warning, Columbia and Baker County. Here's Lake City, here's McClenny, there's I-10 and US 90, and you'll see that the box is just skirting to the north here of US 90. Thunderstorms, I'm sure you're hearing them. Olusty out toward McCluskey and into the Manspur area. McCluskey just starting to see some breaks in some of the heavier rain. Mount Carey, you're not too far away. Olusty, you got a pretty good stretch here to get through with what will be some of the heavy wet weather. Certainly wouldn't want to be on US 90 and or I-10 at this point. Wipers would certainly be on high, and I'm sure that it would be a bit of a white knuckle ride there. Two-lane road and some of the gusty winds coming out because we still have what was already a severe thunderstorm. All right, some of the areas, and we'll just keep a track on the timeline. This, as I mentioned, goes through noon, so we've got 19 minutes left over. It's going to put us right around the Taylor and Kinney area, but still a severe storm will continue as you get closer to Baxter and Pontiac in about 27 to almost a half hour. There's the edge of our box, and you can see Taylor and Kenny are just on the outside of the tornado warning, but Margarita, you're kind of right here in the corner as it's to the north. Manspur, it's the same idea, but the crux of the storm, as you see inside of our little cone here, is going to continue just to the north of those areas. You're still going to see the gusty winds coming in ahead of this little squall as it approaches Manspur and then eventually gets over toward the Margarita area. Tornado warning there through, and right now it's pointed at Baker County through the 12 o'clock timeline. I'm going to put this into motion so you can see how it's all been developing.
Yeah, the National Weather Service is saying a debris ball was located north of I-10.
What's interesting, so what a debris ball signature is, and I can step over to the other toolbar that we have and to show you that, but the debris ball is just that. It's debris. It's stuff that's been kicked up from the rotating wind, and instead of it fanning out like it would in a straight line type of scenario, the debris ball is much more concentrated, and by doing so, it shows up via the radar, and it was kind of an interesting thing that folks that were going back and looking at storms through older radar continued to see these kind of significant signatures, and by significant, the decibels were a lot higher in some of those, and I'll show you what I mean here. So if I just select that and go into the storm here, there's 45, and the yellow it's going to be a little bit lighter, and the blue it'll be a little bit lighter, but they were getting really solid decibel return signatures, and what that meant is that it was hitting something solid, and they realized what it was finding were anything from leaves to limbs to pieces of plywood, pieces of roofs, things like that. The debris from a tornado is what was being tracked via the radar, and so that's why it's now called the debris signature. And it's really telltale when you start to see one of those that the potential for the rotation is there. But what I was saying is that even though we've got some confirmation of a debris signature, it's been with this complex here where we've had the rotation icon that continued up until just a few minutes ago, right there along that lightning line where we were seeing the rotation. All right, so what we're going to do here, since we've got the confirmation of the debris, and so it's moving just to the north of US 90 and I-10, is let's go under some of our severe mode here, and we'll go into the shear. Certainly seeing at least moderate in our shear, and then with our barren picking up anything from the wind and the hail as it continues. As far as the storm rain, really not going to see much there, but yeah, that's seeing quite a bit of, see if the velocity, this is basically looking for the incoming and outgoing wind. Not seeing a lot of the green, and what we're looking for is where the green and the red come together. You notice that this is all green, so that's showing something that is a bit more directional. In the red, this is what would be moving away from the radar, and you can see some of the intense colors here. And so we should start to see that's a 41-mile-an-hour wind. There's 27 heading back over. So there's 27. We're seeing some strong wind. When the color gets really a vibrant red, almost sort of a pinkish, is usually where we're seeing winds that are in excess of 58 miles an hour, and that's where we track some of the severe wind. Now, we could be seeing some degradation in the wind measurement because it is coming from the radar all the way over here to Jacksonville, and it's bouncing into the wind as it continues to change. Let's see if these change when I go green. Yeah, see, these are then showing that it's moving away, which is why it's got the negative sign there. Now, let's go back over to our radar, and you'll see the decibels, and I just showed you and explained that just a second ago. So it's showing us where the intense rain is. Those in the 40 decibel range or whatever aren't as bad. It's showing some pretty heavy rainfall, but when we see 50, 60, usually means that we also have some hail, which, by the way, I'm not seeing any of the purple inside of this. And if you were with us earlier, when we were tracking this as it was approaching areas around Lake City, just as it started to become the severe thunderstorm, we sent out an alert, and part of that was because we were seeing a lot of the purple and the potential for the hail.
And Richard, Brianna just made calls to both Columbia County and Baker County EM, and they're not reporting any damage at this time.
That is fantastic news, which makes me think that maybe the debris ball that they saw could have been into what we were saying, that kind of sparsely populated, more rural spots here along the way. So if it did go through maybe an area, a cluster of trees or something like that, that could have been the potential for the debris ball that they saw. So let's try this. I'm going to kick it back in time here and see if we, actually, not so much that this is a direct indicator of the debris ball, but I'll let this loop through and look at the purple that was right there as it started to pop. So this is most likely would be on the edge of the potential for what was the rotation out of the radar-derived part of that signature, and it's under where we saw the hail. Let's see if I can shorten that a little bit. Go to a 15-minute timeline, see if that shows up. 15, clickety-click. And there you go. So this is the cell that we're watching. It doesn't quite go back far enough to pick up the purple. All right, let's bring it to where we are right now. Our skit line here, and that's what this is a marker for. Basically goes into the center, into the heart of the storm. It is showing a TBS though. So that means there's a tornado vortex signature. This is indicating that we're seeing some rotation. Decibel is about the same as that they have been, kind of midway, about 8,200 with the top only at 23,000. Still a rather shallow complex of storms, but their forward speed, east-northeast, which is the direction it's moving, follow the arrow there, is at 43 miles an hour. We've seen some of these up to 50 miles an hour with the potential for what is a tornado vortex signature. A rotating storm is what that means. Taylor, Kenny, Baxter, anywhere between a 12 to a 20-minute window. And then outside, but continuing through what would be our severe thunderstorm warning would take us into areas around Stokesville, Clark, and Boggy. And remember, our severe thunderstorm warning does include the western part of Duval County, just shy of Baldwin. But I would be watching for the storms, being that you're that close to the edge of the warning box. And you can see that our cluster of storms here is also closing in on the edge of our tornado warning box. The rest of the box that you see is for our severe thunderstorm warning that will continue for a half hour beyond our tornado warning. That'll expire here within about 12 minutes or so. All right, so let's clear that out. This one, I'm not going to be surprised if it expires early. And like I said, because we're not seeing anything that is, even though we're showing a vortex signature, I'm not seeing anything with any of our icons that are on and in place like what we saw with that other system as it moved through. And that one had the extension on it. If you were with us, it went from 11:15, I believe it was, to 11:30. So this is another one. And we did go off with that one as soon as it expired. The strong thunderstorms exiting areas around McCluskey and over toward Nevere. Lulu just on the edge, picking up a little bit of rainfall. I'm sure your plants love it, especially if you got any of the azaleas. They are absolutely beautiful and blooming this year. Olusty, Manspur, and heading over toward the Margarita area. Olusty, you've got a bit more to go here. A swath of the heavy rain coming in, and then it will start to lighten up, and that sets up Manspur that'll be next in line, and then continuing to ramp up here as you get closer to...
The National Weather Service is keeping the tornado warning until noon at this time near Sanderson now, and 19 miles northeast of Lake City, moving northeast at 40.
Yep, this is the area that we're watching here. Let's see if we can get Sanderson to pop up. Some of the areas here, by the way, will go out. A lot of these roads are county roads and kind of farm or forestry type. So you got county or road 213, 212, 232, looks like Old Sandmill Road, and where it's going to be leading will be areas over toward County Road 250, East Tower Road. Let's see, these look like they've got some names on them. Doyle Williams Road, and it looks like County Road 250. So again, going back to some of the numbers, 202. These may have a different name if you're local to them, but if you're familiar with the numbers, there you go. The update just came in, areas that we're watching, and you can see that, we're trying to lead you into areas to start watching for. Here's the red line that marks the edge of our tornado warning that has about another 9 minutes to go. So Taylor and Kenny and some of the areas that we were showing you are just on the outside, but you're still under the severe thunderstorm that will continue for another half hour here beyond our tornado warning. Possibly the reason that they're going to continue it and run this all the way through the timeline here at the lunch hour is that the National Weather Service did say that they had a confirmed debris ball at one point out of it, and I would guess that it was in the area where we were seeing some of those returns. Still showing the TVS here, so tornado vortex signature, moving at about 43 miles an hour, so it's tracking some rotation on the inside. Our timeline that started off with a 20-minute window is narrowing down 12 to 14, just outside our warning box, and now 10 to 11. And you see that the rest of our warning box would continue under our severe thunderstorm, therefore areas around Stokesville and Clarking, which will take us into 12:30. The interesting part of this is where the rest of our cells were a bit more compact. You can see that this one is stretching and trailing off here, leaving folks there along US 90 and I-10 under some of the heavy rain coming through. Not a lot of lightning, though, as you get to the south in and around that Olusty, and then same thing here for Manspur. So even though you're still going to have the gusty winds coming in out of the squall, what we're not seeing here, and you might even have a really decent-looking shelf cloud type of signature, which is going to give you those really dark low clouds that almost look like they're rolling over the treetops, especially in the intensity. And you can see just how dark red, not quite purple, but still some pretty solid returns there coming back via the radar. So gusty wind that will be coming in from the west as this whole thing continues to lift to the east and northeast. All right, let's head back over here and we'll pick this up just for the next couple of minutes. It went into the warning mode instead of our track mode. There we go. So we're still kind of every time the timeline changes just a little bit, but still puts us just outside of what will be the end of our warning period here for the tornado. We're watching Baker County as it's moving away from Columbia County, and I would say what would be left over into Columbia. Certainly much lighter rainfall here as it continues along 441 southward over toward Murtis and Ebenezer, and then it starts to pick up in intensity as you get into Baker County with some of the heaviest continuing.
Yeah, there's a nice line behind it too, Richard, looking pretty much as it's targeting into the Alachua County area.
Yeah, this was going to be our next push alert. As we were watching it, it's already prompted some marine advisories, and it is a pretty good cluster. The FutureCast has this continuing in a line that will take it across Alachua County, Bradford County. I'd start looking out here as you've got this will be coming through, and I tell you what, we can put a time on it. Going into the cluster of our thunderstorms, it's going to give you, based on its current speed here, that's about 50 miles an hour. So I would actually cut this timeline because these have been moving pretty consistently in and around the 30, 40 mile an hour range as this continues to come through. I would say closer to about an hour, hour and a half at most for areas in and around Stark, as that'll be moving in. But it does show as the FutureCast continues to lift this across Bradford County, then into Clay County, and eventually into Duval. And it will be this line that we're watching then for the potential of bringing some rain and some ugly weather out there to the players. And that would be closer to about 2 o'clock, giving up that 2-hour window. All right, our watch box continues to shrink. It does still have a little bit left over here into Columbia County, but there's nothing that is associated with this part. So here's the cluster. Even our lightning is starting to fade away, and I would say that I would do the 3D thing just to show you where we're starting to see this collapsing already, but it gets a little bit busy, and I know some folks that always get the email that when we get into 3D mode, they kind of get lost. So we'll stay in our kind of our 2D paper mode here as we're watching this cluster as it continues to lift away from US 90 and I-10, but it will continue through Baker County, as we were mentioning there, just to the edge of our warning box, Taylor and Kenny. By this point, it will have expired. You're already probably around the Eddy and Baxter area. You've got a few of the lightning strikes, but we're looking at 6 here, lightning strikes compared to what we had even when we first started tracking it, which were up and around the 60 plus range. But if I continue to move up and it picks up everything that's in our cluster, there you go. You can see where we're at more than 100 strikes as our severe thunderstorm warning continues here. That'll be moving out for the coastal waters and our tornado watch that continues through 3 o'clock. If you are living along the western part of our forecast circle, these warning boxes, or watch boxes rather, tornado watches, will start to fall off as this whole complex continues to shift to the east. So we might see these expire a little bit early, but certainly just based on the current timing and what we're seeing developing in and around Alachua County, that is going to keep us under the tornado watches for the duration of that, and that takes us into the 3 o'clock timeline. Our tornado warning, about another 3 minutes and change here. Not seeing as much of the activity. I'm surprised that this one continued without anything that's really showing a large amount of rotations. We haven't seen any of the icons for the cell, but there was a debris signature that was spotted with this before it became a tornado warning, and at that time it was still severe thunderstorm, which means that it could have had a brief embedded tornado, quick spin up type thing. The debris signature shows, and this is why we are tracking this into Baker County for another 3 minutes or so. It's actually now starting to show here to the south, even without the lightning, starting to see some of the purple coming up. Let's see if this will give me any kind of marker. Kind of shows me where there might be some roads out here. It could be some of the forestry roads or whatever, but we're out near Pony Dobson. It looks like Pony Dobson Road, and that'll be to the north of Pony Dobson, where we're seeing what could be the potential for some hail getting into the purple. And if you see our little graph here, you can see as it gets into the purple is usually an indicator of hail, and so are any of the gray and or the white. And at that point, you're talking about some significant and large hail. Back to our little track line, you can see that this hasn't moved, meaning that if there was an update where it was finding another spot that was potential for the tornado vortex signature, then it would move correspondingly there along that line. Let me see if I can just
They did just issue the severe thunderstorm warning, though, for Alachua and Gilchrist.
That's the next one in line.
That's the next one, yep.
So like we were saying, that folks that are in that area, we'll be sending out a push alert here as soon as we're done tracking this particular tornado warning. And here's the line that now continues. So Like I was saying, what we're seeing in model data takes this line here from around Newberry and brings it through Alachua County, High Springs into Gainesville, continues to move it to the northeast. That's going to bring it into Union and Bradford County. More specifically, it looks like it'll be into Bradford, and then cutting across what will be basically the core here of Clay County, Middleburg, Orange Park, getting into Green Cove Springs. And then if you just follow the blue line as it continues, and that gives you a good idea where it would be next, and that is into Duval. And remember, Duval still has a, there we go, severe thunderstorm warning.
So Rich, they just, the tornado warning now is for Baker and Charlton County in Georgia until 12:30. They are tracking a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Taylor, 21 miles north of Rayford, moving northeast at 40.
All righty. So we've been watching the one here near Taylor, and then of course we've got Kenny, and then you said the other one was at Rayford.
21 miles north of Rayford.
Yeah, so we're way up here, moving away from Union County here. But yep, so here's the second box that Michelle was just talking about. So here's where it now takes us through 12:30 into Charlton County for something that is very light on any kind of lightning, and also pretty light on any of our icons there for rotation. So step over, I'm going to see if we can just go into some of our other modes here. Make sure we got everything on. Pop that in there. All right, yeah, so all in all, this isn't, as far as the vigorousness of our other system, I mean, you can just see from the difference of the lightning, you go into this one here and it starts to drop down into single digits. Looks like we've got, 2 or 3 inside of the view with a signature that's really starting to fall apart. But again, if there was a debris signature, they're looking at it through a different set of eyes. They're looking in, computer equipment that is different than what we have. So it is absolutely possible that we still have, in what continues to show, the interesting thing, at least inside of our system, now it's showing meso versus the TVS. So what we're seeing, meso basically meaning small scale circulation, whereas the vortex signature means that we've got a column that is spinning versus an entire cell that could be seeing rotation, which would make sense being where our wind is coming from and how the system is moving from the west to the east, really more east and northeast at just under 40 miles an hour. And the tops of these things, where I showed you the one that we were tracking here into Camden County, was at 31,000 feet, and here we are cutting about half of that off. So very shallow top in the cells, but at the same time with these shallow top ones, they can still have the quick spin up type tornadoes, and also because they're shallow top, you get those really dark clouds that build along these squalls as they continue. So it's possible, like I said, with the shelf cloud, that you'll see that as it continues to move away. Lusty, still got the lighter rain starting to ease up here just a little bit. That'll be lifting away. Same thing goes for Manspur. And Margarita is just skirting these as the showers and what would be the heavier rain continues in and around Kenny and then heads over toward Taylor. McClenny still on the dry slot here. Stokesville, though, from the light rain, you're going to see it intensify as it will continue to drift just to the north of Baldwin, Briceville, and then heading over toward the areas around Engle and Highway 301. And what I'm talking about will be the tail end that as it continues to lift away. So the timeline actually worked out pretty well here for Taylor and Kenny, where you were on the edge of the tornado warning. You're now inside of it as it was extended to go for another half hour here. On the outside of that box, boggy and into areas around Stokesville, but you still have the severe thunderstorm that now continues. And so the severe thunderstorm warning is still at 12:30. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we've got 2 of them. Okay, so the severe thunderstorm warning and our current tornado warning are currently set to expire at the same time. It'll be interesting to see, because if anything, you would think that the warning might expire, if not early, it'll expire at 12:30, and then continue the severe thunderstorm warning and potentially continue that if they think that this system here is still severe. But if there were other parameters inside of these, this box opens up and it lists everything from the wind to the potential for hail. And as you see, we're not seeing that, at least inside the warning box. What's interesting is where we have the signatures that are showing up. It's not this particular cell, but we're seeing the purple again. So just on the edge, that tail end, as it continues to lift, let's see here, to the north of Sanderson, the potential there for some, and that would be smaller hail as it continues in those little dollops that show up when they start to get clustered in a little bit tighter, is where we're seeing more of a signature for what would be supporting updraft, holding the hail into the upper levels of the atmosphere. Taylor and Kenny, about an 8-minute window. We're watching for, and you know, by all means, if you've got the time and it's safe enough, after this moves through, if you saw any hail or anything, feel free to click a pic and send it to our WJXT, which you can do via our website.
Yeah, I think it's the hail that is definitely firing off these tornado warnings.
Yeah, and the debris signature for this particular cell, but you would have thought that maybe that one would have expired and then that would have been it, because we're not seeing the ferocity that we've seen with the last couple of cells here, especially with the lack of lightning. All right, so moving the map here just a little bit, we're heading back over. We were tracking these, and we can do it here in a different way. Let me go into, tell you what, let's grab more of our storm path fan. Going to kind of outline the areas here around Newberry and Archer, and we'll pull these out to about 20 miles an hour. So outside of our area, technically, is what we're seeing. It gets inside of our viewing area once it gets to I-75 and then continues to the east. So Micanopy being on the fringe, Clinch, Arundano, Buckingham, all of those are just on the periphery, but you might know some folks that are in and around the area, and that will be then closing in and getting closer to Keystone Heights, Stark, and up through Lottie, which, by the way, you're starting to see the rain move back in. The real intense stuff here is going to give you about a 45-ish minute up to about an hour window before that'll start to close in, and we'll keep an eye on any of the signatures that'll be showing up. This one's actually kind of cool because it extends outside of the box. And here's what I was saying before, that if it does find things that would be in our severe criteria, it'll list them, and that's not what we're seeing with our current tornado warning, but hail showing up at 50%, and the size would be up to about a ½ inch, so it's getting close to the severe mode. And then Half Moon, Archer, Newberry here, Jonesville, are some of the cities that are going to be in the way as the cell itself continues to move at about 54 miles an hour. Notice this one also is showing meso, meaning that there's some small scale circulation that is being detected inside of that particular storm. All right, back over to our tornado warning. If I was just to look at this as it sits on the radar, we've got a collapse that's happening here in between. We've got two clusters, what look like heavy rainfall. And if we go into what do we have on our signature, still showing that we have some rotation, a little bit slower than the last cell, as this one's moving roughly at about 40 miles an hour, 36 here. You can see our highest decibels have also come down, showing some of the collapse, and even the height that was at one point about 16,000, 15,009 is now dropped down to 14,000. So we are starting to see some of the decreasing in height, which typically, especially with the lack of lightning here, shows that we're also seeing some of the intensity as it starts to fall apart.
Well, the severe thunderstorm warning has been canceled for Columbia, Hamilton, Union, and Clinch.
All right.
Continuing for Baker, Duval, Nassau,
So,
Charlton, and Ware.
So this is, if this box, if we took the severe thunderstorm and we extended it, this is where Columbia County has now fallen out of the severe. And I mean, if we look at this cell here, there's not much different between the one that will be approaching Lake City. We can put a little timeline on your next little round of rain here. We'll just do a quick little fan. So I'm going to go right around somewhere toward the center. Got to keep my finger on the button there, Richard. I'll try it again. And we'll grab this and let's see. Yeah, that's easily going to make it up to and around Lake City. So I'd give you about a ½ hour before you'll see some rain. But if you look at the colors, the signature between the two, a lot of similarities in what we're seeing. Like I said, we're beginning to see also the signs that we've got a little bit more of a collapse. Baxter, Boggy, Stokesville, Kenny right now, Taylor, we got about another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd say 10, where the heavier rain will be moving away. Eddie's kind of been on the skirt here. Same thing with Sargent. As you saw, a little blast or two with some moderate to heavy rainfall. That too will be moving away. Sargent's already on the edge, and Eddie, not much time to go there before that'll start to move out. Meanwhile, heavier rain will be moving into Toledo, Kent, St. George here, into Charlton County, and then over toward Duval as we get into areas of Highway 301, Callahan southward, Briceville, Tulane, and skirting just to the north of Baldwin. But if we continue that track, just following our severe line here, Densmore, Biscayne, Plummer, Cary, Ratliff continues northward, and that means that folks that might be trying to fly out, there could be an airport weather advisory sent out if there's a lot of wind that would be associated here with that cell as it moves through.
Canceled.
So the tornado warning?
Yep.
Okay.
Baker and Charlton.
All right, so let's just do a recap here. I'm going to clear the views out so that we can see what's happening in real time. This tornado warning was allowed to expire, and it did so pretty early. It was extended through 12:30, so we're not seeing as much of the rotation signature. Our severe thunderstorm warning for that same area is going to continue through 12:30, and we'll continue to monitor this because it's possible. We're not seeing a lot of lightning with it, but if it was severe, we might see that extended, which could take us a little bit deeper into areas around Nassau County. So that puts us back to watching a really strong cluster. Let me break this view out. Look at this, starting at Gainesville, and then, or basically Alachua County here, and then all the way getting that Gulf of Mexico influence where that line continues. Folks, if we just take that line and draw it, we'll take it here from Gainesville and just pull it in the direction that it's heading, and you see what's next. So we've got, as I talked about just a little while ago, get ready for the thunderstorms. Let me clear all of the mess out here, so it's still trying to track. For folks in Alachua County, get ready for the intensity to start coming through. Gainesville, Gatortown, USA, northward. That then is going to move into Bradford County, talking about folks that are anywhere along that Highway 301 line, Waldo, Hampton, getting up through Stark. I would even say look out in and around Lake Butler. That's going to then take us into Clay County. So as we get into, this would put us closer to about 1 o'clock, Middleburg into areas around Penny Farms, continuing to lift through the core here of Columbia, or of Clay County across Green Cove into Orange Park. And then crossing over the river, and that's going to set up parts of St. John's and into Duval, and we'll be watching St. John's to send out any alerts if it's needed for the folks that are out there at the players. I'm sure they've got their weather apps and they're ready to go as they're staying away from the light rain. So once again, our tornado warning has been allowed to expire early. 2 severe thunderstorms on the board. Stay weather aware. If there's another tornado warning, we'll be right here.
See why every day more people are choosing News4Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.